delay in the winter session of Parliament. Top leaders of the Congress party in a press conference early today alleging that the government was deliberately delaying the winter session of Parliament to avoid questions from the opposition benches, which could hamper its prospects in the Gujarat Assembly polls. The Congress's attack comes a day after its President Sonia Gandhi said that the government, in its arrogance, has cast a dark shadow on the country's parliamentary democracy. Finance Minister Jaitley responding to Sonia Gandhi's comments, saying that in the past too, the Congress had also postponed Parliament sessions. Earlier this month, Sitaram Yechuri of the CPIM, in an exclusive interview to Network 18, had called the deferment of Parliament sessions allegedly due to Gujarat elections undemocratic. He joins us on the show today, as does Sachin Pilot of the Congress Party, Tathagata Satpathy of the Biju Janata Dal, and with us representing the BJP, Narendra Taneja. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the show. Mr. Taneja, before we start this debate, let's very quickly listen in to the allegations that have been made by the opposition against the government and the counter-arguments from the government.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and his government, they are running away from Parliament for any debate or discussion which will expose their misgovernance.
Normally the winter session begins approximately in the middle of November. So far no summon has been issued to convene the winter session, and no communication has been given to political parties in this regard. That is why there is a doubt, there is an apprehension. Because of the forthcoming Gujarat elections, government wants to delay the session or scrap the session or shorten the session.
Congress party is suffering from selective amnesia. Many times the Parliament session, winter session, has been held during the month of December to accommodate the state and provincial state elections. And we are committed to hold winter session. It will be a normal session.
Well, reactions there coming in from the opposition as well as the government. Let's go across now to our guests who are with us on the show. Mr. Taneja, if I can start by asking you, you just heard what the Congress party has had to say. You've seen what people like Mr. Sitaram Yechuri have said. D. Raja, representing the left, has said there on this being an attempt by the government to try and avoid the Parliament session, to try and avoid answering tough questions. Give me a sense of when we can expect dates to be announced. The government has said that there will be a winter session of Parliament. It won't even be a truncated session, but a normal session. We just had the Parliamentary Affairs Minister saying that. When are we going to have the dates being put out, sir?
First of all, you see, election is the biggest single symbol in any democracy. If they really think that they have got something to say, which they are already trying to do in Gujarat, they can say outside Parliament, they can say anywhere else. And this charge that we are trying, it's a tradition. It has happened in the past several times.
No, can you be specific, sir? Can you be specific? Give me instances. Give me instances, Mr. Taneja, of when you believe the opposition that is now sort of holding this charge against the government has in fact postponed, deferred a session of Parliament to accommodate elections. Give me specific instances, sir.
Well, first, this okay, sure, they suspended the whole Parliament for months and months and months, 1975 to 1977. Are you forgetting that? It's the same Congress party which did it. And just a second, in any case, Rahul Gandhi ji, the Supremo of Congress party, he languishes here at the very bottom in the India Today survey of MP's performance and, attendance. Very bottom. How many times he really goes to Parliament? When Parliament is in session, he disappears in Myanmar, Thailand,
let's not make this about an individual, Mr. Taneja.
Who is talking of democracy?
Okay, all right. Let me take that point across to Sachin Pilot. Sachin Pilot, Narendra Taneja saying, look who's talking about democracy. Your own leader, the Vice President of the Congress Party, has an abysmal record when it comes to attending Parliament itself. If you have concerns, if you have issues, raise them outside of Parliament. And the government saying that, look, anyway, we're going to announce dates shortly. It is going to be a normal session, and deferments have happened in the past as well.
Well, I think it's very sad that the BJP chooses to respond in that fashion. What Mrs. Gandhi has said and what Rahul is saying is that should the Indian Parliament be held hostage to a state election? If you see in the last assembly elections, the session of the Winter Parliament was held on time. The fact that the government is choosing not to have a winter session or to make it very small indicates the fact that they are more interested in winning election battles as opposed to answering the tough questions on the floor of the House. Now, whether one person attends 100% or 5%, 20% is immaterial. The fact that the entire opposition is up in arms, we believe that the winter session of Parliament should be held on time. There is absolutely no reason for the session to be postponed just because elections are being conducted in Gujarat. I can tell you, the entire cabinet of the government of India is stationed in Gujarat. They have no time for running Parliament or the government. They are only an election fighting machine which will at all costs put everything at stake and try and score a victory, which is not happening. Rahul Gandhi's visit in Gujarat has rattled the Prime Minister and Amit Shah. That's why they're even forsaking the Parliament session of this entire country just to focus on one election.
That is still in the realm of speculation, Sachin, because the government is saying that we will announce dates shortly and it will not even be a truncated session, it will be a normal session. At least that is the position of the government on record as of today.
The fact that we're having this debate, there must be reason for it. No, you're having this debate on the winter session because there is a thought going ahead and the government has so far not announced dates. It's already 22nd. So there is no reason for us to push back Parliament. They must have the courage of conviction of answering questions in Parliament about the defence deals, about all the misgovernance that they've done in their power in 3.5 years. But it's to any mundane mind, it seems like the Gujarat elections have precedent over our democracy. Why should we be held hostage to one state election?
Sure. If I may very quickly ask you, Sachin Pilot, to elaborate for us, what are the issues that the Congress intends to raise in Parliament as and when Parliament reconvenes?
As we speak today, thousands of farmers are marching in New Delhi asking for fair compensation. Farmer suicide has become an epidemic in this country. BJP has promised 150% profit on the input cost. Farmer and agrarian issues, the defense deal is under question, under scanner. Mr. Amit Shah's own admission that they have actually, the GST has been a flawed movement. The note ban is now hitting the economy. There's job loss. The economy is tanking. These questions have to be answered by the government through the Parliament, which the people of India wanting to ask. The PM has no press conference. The ministers are only attacking Mr. Gandhi, not answering about their own job and duties. So that is the only forum we have in a democracy to ask those questions where they're compelled by law to answer those questions. I think they're shying away from answering tough things that are being put to them. And the BJP, I think, has a brute majority in Parliament. They're not a coalition government. They must be brave enough to face those tough questions on the floor of the House.
Tathagata, Satpathy, let me come to you. The BJP saying that, look, this is the opposition is making a mountain out of a molehill. We will reconvene. We will have a winter session. It will be a normal session of Parliament. And this business of the opposition saying that the government is running away from answering tough questions is, as I pointed out, mountain out of a molehill. Tathagata, Satpathy, how would you respond to the charges that the government is making in counter to the allegations being levelled by the opposition?
First of all, I am very amused. In these 4 terms in the Lok Sabha, I have seen the Congress in the Treasury benches, and now I am seeing the BJP in the Treasury benches. We have, fortunately, the Biju Janata Dal has consistently been in the opposition.
Yes.
So they are either of them, they are not really opposition. Secondly, when we in the opposition raise an issue, and the Congress is, please note this, the Congress is not an opposition party. It is a national party that's facing some bad times now.
Right.
But both NDA and UPA are supposedly people who are always in power. So they have a very similar behavior. And people, and especially the media, has been taught that if a good, healthy opposition is raising issues and is creating a din and a uproar in Parliament to highlight certain misdeeds or wrong acts, that is called disruption. And then you calculate in terms of how many US dollars or how many INR, how many crores have been wasted.
Right.
But nobody calculates that when the government is deferring or delaying essential bills to facilitate in a desperate election, what losses the country is facing.
Right.
So we are always going by political considerations, never considering what exactly is happening to the country now. You have a dictatorial government, and this government wants to steamroller everybody. And again, I want to insist, the Congress has no right to claim that it is an opposition party. It is an opportunist party, as opportunistic as the BJP.
Okay, so Tathagata Satpathy, Sachin Pilot, his comment to you is that this is rich coming from the Congress party. It's like the pot calling the kettle black. That apart, Mr. Taneja, Mr. Satpathy is saying that this is a dictatorial government. You are using the brute majority that you enjoy in Parliament to run roughshod over parliamentary procedure. But we've also got Mr. Sitaram Yechury, and I'll come to you, Mr. Taneja, to respond to all of that. But let me bring Mr. Yechury in. Mr. Yechury, the Congress crying foul, Tathagata Satpathy saying that, whether it's the Congress or the BJP or the NDA or the UPA, they've acted in similar fashion. What is it that you would like to highlight today as we now come closer to the possibility of a session being convened?
Oh, for heaven's sake, don't reduce everything in the country to Congress, BJP.
I'm not, sir. I'm not. It's the politicians who are doing that.
That is not. Yeah, but it's wrong. I mean, we are talking about our parliamentary democracy. We are talking about the system of parliamentary democracy. And in our constitution, the parliament plays a vital role in keeping the government accountable, and members of parliament are accountable to the people. That is what is meant when we start a constitution by saying we the people, the sovereignty of the people. By not calling the parliament, you are disrupting that sovereignty. And you are actually, incapacitating our system of parliamentary democracy. And it's a much far more serious an issue than saying whether who did this when this happened, whenever it happened, it is wrong. And it should not happen, and if it's happening for a flimsy reason of an election in Gujarat, I mean, this didn't happen 5 years ago when you had the same election in Gujarat, or 10 years ago when you had the same election in Gujarat. But why now?
Okay.
This is the contempt for the parliament that is being shown, and that is what needs to be squarely condemned.
Okay, contempt for parliament that is being shown. Narendra Taneja, let's move beyond this issue of deferring, postponing, not calling the winter session of parliament, which the government, as I've been pointing out, says that they will do so shortly. But let's just look at some of the other data, since the charge that is being made here by the other leaders is that there is a circumvention of parliamentary procedure. If you look at the number of bills that have been sent to the Parliamentary Standing Committee, it's much lower in the 16th Lok Sabha versus what we've seen in the previous Lok Sabha. If you look at the number of ordinances that have been passed by the government, it's much higher in the 16th Lok Sabha versus the previous Lok Sabha. So that, I would imagine, is giving people like Sitaram Yechury, is giving people like Sachin Pilot and Tathagata Satpathy the opportunity to claim that parliamentary democracy is under threat.
Oh, Mr. Satpathy was saying, BJP is dictatorial. I don't understand. If you're majority in Lok Sabha, or if, we don't have majority in Rajya Sabha, but if you're majority, you become dictator? That means Pandit Nehru's, after first Lok Sabha general election, second general election, third general election, and under Rajiv Gandhi, 3/4 majority, they were all dictatorship. I mean, if people give you majority, you have a majority government. That's how parliamentary democracy functions. And if we have done anything,
I don't think he's questioning the majority, sir. He's not questioning the numbers per se. He's questioning the manner in which the numbers are being used.
That's subjective view. I mean, we can call them, we can call them dictator. We can call CPM doesn't believe in democracy and all that. There's no end of it. Those are kind of opinions, personal opinions, But the point here is that have we done anything against the norms, against the provisions of the Constitution when it comes to convening of sessions or what we do in Parliament? I mean, here we are busy in Gujarat, and we, these parties, we're going to win. We are going to win election there. We're going to form the government there. In Himachal, Congress will be thrown out. They know it very. It's frustration, basically speaking. If you want to use the name of Parliament proceeding to express your frustration, you're welcome to do that. This is democracy. But if we are doing anything against it, let the people decide.
Let me get them to respond to that. Sitaram Yechury, it is frustration of the opposition and nothing else.
Yeah, if they are going to win Gujarat, if they're going to win Himachal, why are they not letting the Parliament meet? Who's frustrated here?
Well, Parliament will be meeting soon.
Now, for every year, on the third Monday of November, the winter session more or less begins. Now, if you are not going to adhere to that schedule, what is that very, very, very compelling reason that you have, except for your perceived frustration, may not be able to do well in Gujarat election? 30 of your cabinet ministers, are they distributing leaflets? Is it the government that's working?
Okay.
I mean, what is happening? I mean, isn't it obvious to anybody?
But what is wrong with the cabinet minister doing this? Is a democracy. You think it's not allowed? Mr. Yechuri is not allowed in democracy. You think the minister shouldn't go and campaign? Is that against democracy?
Please,
in India they do. In China they don't.
I know that.
In China they don't. In India do.
Come on,
India is multi-party democracy.
Again.
It's not one-party rule. It's not one-party rule like China.
Mr. Taneja, just a second. Mr. Yechuri. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Ms. Shireen, to what level are you reducing this debate?
No, I'm not, sir, which is why I'm saying...
Are we talking of Chinese? Are you talking of China? Are you talking of Indonesia?
No, I'm just giving you an example.
What are you talking of? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taneja, let Mr. Yechuri respond. Mr. Yechuri, go ahead, sir.
When I have a shortage of knowledge, I'll borrow it from others, if I want to. Please don't be so patronizing. The point of the ministers is to do the ministerial job under oath.
Debate. Don't make personal allegations.
Are they doing it? Are they doing it? Are they, please, again, what are you doing, yeah?
Don't make personal allegations,
Mr. Taneja.
No, why are you?
Mr. Taneja, let's focus on the substance, sir. Let us focus on the substance. Mr. Taneja, let Mr. Yechuri have his say. I will come back to you. Mr. Yechuri, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, please listen to me. If you're going to reduce this to a street fight, and to the levels of the lowest possible that you're getting into, I'm sorry, there's no point in joining this debate. The question is, parliamentary democracy is when the government is accountable to the parliament, through that to the people. And if you reduce the number of days of parliament, you're reducing that accountability and you're undermining your constitutional order. It's so very obvious. Okay. Anybody has the democratic right to swat on a mosquito, to kill a fly, to distribute a pamphlet. But the point is, the job that we are entitled to do, what the responsibility given to you, is that being discharged? And my submission is no.
Fair point. Fair point. So, as I pointed out, sir, the government still maintaining that there will be a full session, a full winter session, except that we don't know when it will start. But Mr. Satpathy, let me come to you now, sir. We heard from the Congress party on the issues that the Congress intends to raise in Parliament, whether it is the issue of the misalignment of MSP and what the farmers are actually getting, it is the Rafael defense deal that they intend to raise, or even the state of the economy post the note ban and the GST. What are these specific issues, sir, that we can expect the BJD to raise in Parliament? What is it that you would like the Parliament to focus on?
The BJD has many issues, and the primary and one of the top ones is, of course, the farmers' plight, the suicide by farmers, and the economic situation that has derailed the country on its path to development. Before I get into that, I would just like to reply to one point that the gentleman from, I forget his name, the gentleman from the BJP.
Mr. Taneja, yes.
Mr. Taneja, the Honorable Mr. Taneja said that Nehru's first government had a brute majority, and can you call that dictatorial? See, certain born-again Hindutva people, I am not saying joker, please don't say I am insulting anybody. Born-again Hindutva people forget that a personality that they bow down to and pray to now, Mr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, was the industry and supply minister in that same Jawaharlal Nehru's first cabinet.
Right.
And I am not an apologist for Nehru. I am not an apologist for the Congress, but history cannot be altered by either the BJP or by me. All that I'm trying to say is that, like you rightly pointed out, it is not the numbers in democracy, it is only numbers that matter. There is no doubt about it. But how you misuse or use it for a proper positive angle, whereby you help the nation in developing, whereby you don't help a few industrialists by doing your demonetization and your GST and everything. But you actually help the toiling masses, the farmer, the laborer, the downtrodden.
Yeah.
That is all I'm saying.
Fair point. But, you know, I want to go back again to the substance of what we're discussing, and I don't want to make this a squabbling match between one party and the other. We talked about the difference...
I am neither of these two parties.
Yes, sir. Let me now talk about the quality of discussion and debate in Parliament. And I'm looking at the PRS data. This is data since 2014. 68% of the bills passed by the Lok Sabha have been discussed for over 2 hours. This is higher than what we saw in the 15th Lok Sabha, where 44% of the bills were discussed for over 2 hours. The proportion of bills being discussed for less than 30 minutes has fallen from 26% in the 15th Lok Sabha to 4% in the current Lok Sabha. In contrast, the proportion of bills being discussed for less than 30 minutes in the Rajya Sabha has increased from 15% in the 15th Lok Sabha to 23% in the current Lok Sabha. So, Mr. Yechuri, let's also talk about the quality of discussion and debate in Parliament. If you go by the numbers that I just read out to you in Lok Sabha, we seem to have made an improvement, but in the Rajya Sabha, the story looks very different.
Well, if you have a majority, you can make an improvement. There's absolutely no problem. And it's only when you don't have a majority and when your interest is not in the debate, but in having things passed, that it will happen like it is happening in the Rajya Sabha. So therefore, these are not really indicators of the quality of debate.
Okay.
You see, listen to me, why is it that you have the British Parliament that is in session for more than 200 out of the 365 calendar days? In India, why is there a resistance to move a constitutional amendment to making it mandatory that the Parliament will meet at least 100 days out of the 365 in a calendar year? Why? Every government of the day wants to avoid its accountability and answerability to the Parliament. And this is something which collectively has to be given. And if you only see everything as a tu-tu mai-mai, and everything is saying that, you know, you see, I'm better than everybody else.
Fair point.
Then I'm sorry, the system can never be improved.
Hence, I'm asking you, Mr. Yechuri, and I'm asking all of you gentlemen on the program, because, you know, this is imperative for us to be able to take some serious decisions forward, and hence the quality of discussion, debate, and of course the actual meeting of Parliament is absolutely crucial and necessary. So what, Sachin Pilot, should we now, all parties come together and work to ensure that we see not just Parliament meet, but also better quality of discussion and debate in Parliament? Because that is what we owe this country and its legislative process. Sachin?
I mean, I heard the other people speak. First of all, it is not about frustration. It is not about the number of hours one speaks in Parliament. It's the message that you give to the country that the Parliament is sacrosanct. It is not about one party, one government. It belongs to all of us. The fact that we're not having the session of being postponed, I think is inappropriate. The other thing I'm going to point out is that the perception today in India is that the Gujarat elections have taken precedent over the conduct of a fair winter session. And it's the job of the government to correct that misperception, if that is a misperception.
Okay.
We are all, as opposition, only saying that, you know, you can allege things about Mr. Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi, but do it in the floor of the House. No, there is a member of Parliament. State this in the floor of the House. Let us not be taken hostage by a political activity. Ministers should campaign. They will campaign in Gujarat. But must the Parliament be avoided or stalled because of Gujarat elections? That's a moot question. Let people think about what they have to say about this.
All right, Tathagata, Satpathy, I will give you final comments before we wrap up, and then I'll come to you, Mr. Taneja. Mr. Satpathy, are you still with us?
Yes.
So I would like to understand from you, sir, as and when we see Parliament reconvene, what is it that you would like to see happen on the floor of the House to ensure that we actually have a meaningful discussion and debate on some of the many crucial issues that you just listed out for us, sir?
I have two issues which may have long-term effect. One is that the Parliament session dates should be fixed for every year, no matter what elections, what happens, except in external emergency in a war-like situation, you should have dates fixed. This is first. Second is, the way we have been dealing with bills, the way Babus draft a bill, the ministers probably are not even fully aware of what are the implications, and oblique or becomes and, or an and oblique or becomes or.
Right.
What impact it is going to have at the ground level, none of us are able to comprehend. And least of all, the bureaucracy does not want us to know.
Okay.
So I think that when a bill is to be legislated, it should be introduced and should be given to the MPs at least a fortnight earlier.
Okay.
They should have enough time, ample time to read it.
Right.
Not that you distribute the bill in the morning and you bring it up after lunch.
Okay.
But you give enough time, let people debate on it, and when the debates take place, they should be willing. The government should, no matter which party is in power, I'm talking about the government of India, should be willing to take back the bill, consider what are the relevant portions that need to be amended, and bring a fresh bill within that limited time span.
Okay,
if we do these two things, we will strengthen the democratic process.
I think those are valid points that you make, Mr. Yechuri. I want you to comment on what we've just heard there from Mr. Satpathy. Have a schedule, a fixed schedule, which can only change in cases of emergency, etc. Dates for Parliament should be fixed. And two, to ensure that the legislative process is in fact much more robust, send out the bills to MPs in advance. Mr. Satpathy suggesting a fortnight so that you actually go through this whole legislative process with much more rigor, sir. Add to the list of your suggestions on how do we ensure that Parliament works and does the job it's needing to do.
You see, first of all, I'm on record in the Parliament for having proposed that every year there should be an annual calendar of the Parliament sessions announced at the beginning of the year. That will help other constitutional bodies like the Election Commission in also fixing the dates for elections.
Right.
We have taken this up with the Election Commission a number of times. Why do they clash with the Parliament session? And the Election Commission answer was, how do we know when you're going to meet? So there's no, and many countries in the world, many democracies, I give this schedule at the beginning of the year.
Sure.
So every other constitutional authority also takes that into account, number one. Number two, the strengthening of the parliamentary democracy in the parliamentary processes. What Mr. Satpathy said was correct about the bills, but I think the whole system must be seen in a holistic manner.
Right.
Every bill that is presented by the government must be subjected to the scrutiny of the Parliamentary Standing Committee. And only then, when you talk to the stakeholders involved in the bill, that you understand what is going to be the impact of the bill at the ground level, and therefore we can fine-tune it. And unless you do that, mandatorily, and the government is prepared to consider the recommendations of these standing committees, the things cannot be improved much.
Okay, all right.
Thirdly, I think it is necessary to at least fix 100 days minimum. For the Parliament to meet every year.
100 days minimum.
If necessary, bring a constitutional amendment.
All right. Valid suggestions that are coming in from our panelists. Narendra Taneja, let me end by asking you, sir. You heard what Mr. Yechuri had to say. Minimum of 100 days. Put a calendar in place that the Parliament follows. It will also help the Election Commission. Tathagata Satpathy there saying that MPs should be given bills a fortnight in advance to actually make sure the legislative process is much more robust. I just want to add, for the benefit of our viewers, on the point of the Parliamentary Standing Committee that Mr. Yechuri raised, because the current Lok Sabha has witnessed lesser number of bills being referred to committees, 27%, as compared to the 15th Lok Sabha, which saw 71%, and the 14th Lok Sabha, which saw 60% of the bills being referred to the Parliamentary Standing Committee. So on each of those points, Mr. Taneja, I'll close with you a quick response.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are very good suggestions, having a fixed date. But please allow me to ask this question of Mr. Yechuri. They were part of the government, UPA won, why didn't they do it? They should have done it. They didn't. Second question is, second point, you see our ministers...
I don't know if you're there in Parliament. So therefore you please...
No, I'm not in Parliament, but I know you were part of the government.
It has been... No, I've never been a part of the government. And we have been suggesting, please get your record straight and understanding.
UPA1, you were supporting the government.
Supporting is different. And I've raised it at that time in Parliament. Since then, that's why I said no government of the day. No government of the day is willing to commit to a mandatory 100 days and is willing to accept this suggestion. That is the calendar issue. That is precisely the point I made.
Sure. So this is not...
Again, don't reduce this to...
But 2 points.
Mumbai and the street fight.
Let me finish.
Yes, Mr. Taneja.
Shireen, let me finish.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and the second point, in our party, whether you are a minister or an ordinary member, you are a karyakarta. And all karyakartas go meet the voters. That's the tradition. We are a democratic party. Ministers, whosoever, everybody goes and campaign because everyone is a karyakarta first. That's our party.
That they're not objecting to, Mr. Taneja. They're objecting to the fact that it's coming at the cost of Parliament, sir. That nobody is objecting to whether cabinet ministers campaign or canvass. That's not the objection. The objection is if it's coming at the cost of Parliament.
Allow me to finish my sentence, please. Okay, but it's not what I'm saying. It's not coming in the way. Date will be announced very soon. My final point is, when it comes to running the parliament, is the responsibility of both the government and the opposition to make sure that the parliament functions and the sessions are most productive in the interest of the people. It's the responsibility of the both.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right on that. It is the responsibility of both the government and the opposition. Mr. Taneja promising us that we will hear from the government in the next few days as far as the winter session of Parliament is concerned, what the calendar is going to look like. We will wait for that, sir. But I think very valid and thoughtful suggestions coming in here from our panelists. And we do hope that there will be political will to ensure that parliamentary procedure is much more robust, legislative process is much more robust. Many thanks to Sitaram Yechury, Sachin Pilot, Tathagata Satpathy and Narendra Taneja for joining us on this program. With that, it is time for us to wrap. We will return with lots more here on CNBC TV 18.